From Fairfax, Virginia, this is Out of the Past with Chuck Langdon and Lee Shephard, an in-depth discussion with some of the most fascinating people of our time, many of them with strong area connections. Now, today's Out of the Past.
Welcome to Out of the Past. I'm Chuck Langdon with co-host Lee Shephard.
Thank you, Chuck. Whenever people in Washington get together and talk about the top musical hosts on radio, they just about always mention two names. One, Felix Grant, the other, Bill Mayhugh. We're lucky to have with us today Bill Mayhugh. Welcome to Out of the Past.
I'm delighted to be here.
His lovely wife, Shirley Mayhugh.
Thank you.
But at the
nice
time,
being here.
And actually, Shirley, you were more famous, I believe, than Bill was back when you two met.
Oh, I don't think so.
Shirley,
let's discuss that. We'll make the decision.
Yeah. She was a very well-known singer in this town, and under the name of Sherry Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
And your real name, do you mind if I tell what your real name was?
No.
Shirley Culpepper.
Right.
They named a town after her. Actually, it was her relatives were Culpeppers.
Yes. They didn't leave us any money at all.
Now, let me tell the folks who may not remember, you were a singer, a fashion model, a dancing teacher.
Part-time.
And you even went to Hollywood for a year.
Did. I went to Los Angeles and signed up with Blue Book Models.
That's Marilyn Monroe's outfit.
And that's the one that put her into the picture, the nude photograph. And she was under contract to them at the time. And I stayed about a year, or 6 months, I guess. And I was homesick. I missed my family, so I wanted to come home for the holidays. This was December holidays. And she told me when I got back that she had set up a screen test for me. Well, I never got back to LA, and I didn't do the screen test, so.
Was it because of this young man, this young drummer that you had met, Bill Mayhugh?
Probably was. Yeah, I think so. That's because I didn't go back.
So Bill, you know, she would be a very well-known movie star today if she hadn't married you.
And I'd be rich.
And that is, you started out as a drummer, didn't you?
I did. I started as a drummer and worked at it from 1949 until I got my first night radio show. And then I decided I ought to be in radio and television, and I got a lot of great advice from a lot of wonderful people.
Did you play in the band when Sherry Gibson sang?
No, I was already doing radio and
shows.
TV when she...
So she didn't know you as a musician?
No.
Not really.
How did you meet?
I had a dead battery in my car out at Glen Echo one night, and she was there, and she jump-started my battery for me.
I thought you met at WMAL.
We did. We did. I was doing a fashion show, a bathing suit fashion show, televised that night. And it was in the studio with all these girls in bathing suits. And Bill passed by, and he had to come in and find out what was going on. And Joanne Holler, a friend of mine, introduced us. And that was 1954, so that's how we met.
And 4 years later, on the 19th of April, we were married.
1958.
1958. And next April will be 52 years. She used to tell all her girlfriends that, of course, we've been married 51 years. He was out of the house all night for 30 years. And then she would add, I knew where he was, but he didn't know where I was.
That's interesting. Birds of a feather flock together. The two of you had what are considered insecure types of jobs, radio,
Right.
modeling,
and singing.
But because of you both had the same type of interest where enjoying what you do is more important probably than other things.
Oh, yeah. We've had a great time.
It stayed. It worked.
It worked. Great
I
night.
believe in the old saying, if you love what you do, it isn't work. And I loved going on radio and television. And I also loved playing drums. But you know who the name John Kluge?
Yes.
I was at WGAY in Silver Spring, and Kluge was running it at the time. He owned it. And he called me into the office one day, and he said, Bill, you've been with us almost a year and a half, and you haven't improved. And he said, I understand you play drums. And I said, yes, I do, Mr. Kluge. He said to me, well, I think you should stick to drums because you do not have a career ahead of you in radio and television. Later, and this is just an aside, Mr. Kluge had Shirley and myself down to his estate in Charlottesville just recently.
Did you remind him of what he did?
He said, "What do I know?" And he's only a billionaire.
He's been very kind. He's been very kind to us, and his estate's unbelievable. 18-hole golf course built for him by Arnold Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
How nice!
And we played it.
So, how did you get to MAL? I'm curious about your
Well,
career.
I was at MAL twice. I started at WFAX in Falls Church, Virginia, for no money. I was playing drums. I just wanted to get into radio if I could. And I stayed there 3 months and went to WGAY in Silver Spring, where Mr. Kluge was. Stayed the year and a half, and he canned me. And I went over to WPIK in Alexandria. And while I was at PIK, the general manager of Dumont Television listened to me driving into work in the morning and called me up and asked me if I'd like to work weekends at Dumont Television, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. And I said, yes, I would. So I went over there, and Matt Warren was the program director. And he said, Bill, let's go downstairs, have a beer. I need to talk to you. And that evening, he said to me, do you like radio and television? I said, I love it. He said, you better darn sight learn how to speak the English language. Dead serious. Mm-hmm. How lucky I was that someone would take the time to tell me that. And he sent me to a voice teacher named Louis B. Thompson over at First and Rhode Island Avenue, northeastern Washington. And I called Mr. Thompson and asked him if I could come over, and I knocked on his door. He opened the door. I said, Mr. Thompson, I'm Bill, and he slammed the door in my face. True story. I'm standing there. I knock on the door again. He yells through the door, who is it? I said, it's Bill Mayhugh. He opens the door. He says, that's how to introduce yourself. Now get in here.
And you went in there with that note?
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Now,
and I studied with him till he passed away. 7 years with him.
You liked him a lot, didn't you?
Oh, loved him. He gave me my talent as far as the voice and what I was doing. Little silly things like, what did you do this weekend, Bill? I said, we went down to the Smithsonian. He said, what'd you learn? I said, what do you mean, Louis? What did I learn? You know, they got the Spirit of St. Louis hanging from the ceiling, and they have the First Lady's gowns, and they have the coin collection. He said, but what did you learn? And I said, I don't know what you mean, Louis. He said, who is Smithsonian? How many buildings do they have? How is it financed? I said, I don't know. He said, you didn't learn a damn thing, did you? And he was good with me.
I think that segues into a technique you used when you were on the air all the time, that you would always be reading and studying in order to communicate with the listeners. Although you had no two-way conversation going, you were able to mention things that were of interest. And wasn't that a technique? Did you pick that up?
Yes, it was. And I was convinced by Louis that people don't sit in groups and listen to the radio. It's a woman in the kitchen doing the dishes. It's a man driving an automobile. It's a worker who's got a little small radio next to him. And he said, you must speak just as though you're talking to one person, not pronouns, not announs, as he would say. He said, just talk to people like they're human beings, because guess what? They are.
So much for that ladies and gentlemen approach.
Yes. Yeah, that pontificating was a word he used all the time. I used not to be able to pronounce it.
Of course, you were in the middle of the night, so that's kind of a calm.
Yeah.
I think most people remember you now, Bill, as the all-night music man there on
Yeah, I think that 30 years
30 years will do it.
is in the folks' mind.
But you know, I listened too, but then I would hear you the next night talking about all the places you went and who all you met the next day, and I'm thinking, when does this man sleep?
Not often.
Really? He must not. He must not. Did you ever get sleep?
Oh yeah, right at the top of my backswing. I'd drop off to sleep.